Today's lesson, we are going to pick up stitches for our button band. And I've added these little registration marks as I knit in the round just to help me keep track of where I'm picking up stitches. So I find one of these purl bumps and I like to pick up stitches in between these that are right side up if you're looking at the pattern. So there's this row of these, column I guess, and this column of these, and I'm going to pick up my stitches for my button band in between them. You can see there's that bar between the stitches. So I'm going to pick the line I want right here, and I'm going to follow it all the way down to the bottom in the ribbing. And it gets a little wonky in the ribbing just because the ribs don't line up with the knit stitches. So I'm going to go over to this purl column. I think it looks the best if you pick up stitches in the purl columns of the ribbing, but honestly you can do it wherever you would like to. So I'm going to start here in this purl column at the bottom, and I'm going to pick up stitches, and then I'm going to just shift it over into this row, and I'm going to pick up stitches all the way to the top. Where's that line? Right here, all the way up, and this one lines up, so I'm going to pick up stitches all along here to the top. So we're going to see what that looks like. Okay, I've got my spot. With my smaller needles, I'm going to start in the bottom, and we're going to pick up and knit an odd number of stitches depending on what your pattern calls for. I just loop it around, bring it up through. These first couple are a little bit tricky just because it's kind of tight. See, I didn't get it in there. Another way you can do it is loop it around this way and pull on both tails. There we go. See how it's coming through? Okay, so I picked up one stitch, and now I'm going to work with the long end of the yarn tail, and we're just going to go through picking up a stitch. And I think it looks really nice if you pick up one stitch for every column in the ribbing, and then it's 2 out of every 3 as you go up the body. So we're going to do that again. So I'm going to put my needle in that hole right there in between the bars, and I'm going to loop the thread around the back, hold it taut, and bring it up through. So now I've picked up and knitted 3 stitches. So we're going to do that all the way, and I'll show you what it looks like in the ribbing. I picked up stitches along the ribbing, and now I'm working in between the columns of these, going all the way up. And you can count as you go. It's about 2 out of every 3 stitches. Where'd my yarn go? There it is. Okay, so I'm going to pull it apart so you can see. So I've picked up one. I'm going to pick up another one in that little hole, bring my yarn around, pull it through, and then there's a hole right here, and I'm going to skip this one and go up to the next one. And that kind of gets us the 2 out of every 3. What we want with the button band, we don't want it to splay out when we do it. We want it to kind of pull it in and keep this edge nice and taut. So that's why we don't pick up a stitch for every column. We go kind of every 2 for 3. Sometimes it's every 3 out of 4. Just kind of depends on the gauge and what look you're going for. But this one is about every 2 out of 3. And just keep track as you go and stick with what the pattern says. If you're a little bit off, that's okay. It just needs to be an odd number of stitches. here we are. We've picked up and knit our stitches along the right front. This is where the buttonholes will be. And then you can kind of see when you turn it over, it's going to have this really nice finished edge. So we've ended up here. You can always tell that's where your yarn is at. And we're going to start on a wrong side row. So the first thing you're going to do, get your needle set up. You are going to start with a purl stitch because we want that first stitch on the right side to be a knit. So we're going to go purl one, knit one, purl one, all the way to the end. And I'll meet you when we get down there. Okay, we've come to the end. Got 2 more stitches. Knit, we end on a purl. And it'll be a little loose because that's where you cast on, but not cast on, where you started picking up stitches, but you will fix that when you weave in all your ends. So now we have our first round of rib stitches worked. And I'm working the pattern size 1 to 2. So this next row is where I start my buttonholes. So I'm going to go in and mark with stitch markers where I want my buttonholes to be. Okay, we've got our buttonholes marked according to your pattern size, and I've put my little stitch markers in all of the purl bumps where that yarn over will go that makes the buttonhole. So we're going to start down here and we knit in pattern, and when we get to our marker, we're going to do a yarn over and then a knit 2 together. So I'm going to knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, that's my daughter. I'm going to do a yarn over, and then I'm going to knit these 2 stitches together, this knit and purl stitch. And I should take this marker off. There we go. So I've got my yarn over, now I'm going to knit them together. Because we've added a stitch with the yarn over, we need to decrease a stitch to make, so we have the same number of stitches, and that yarn over is going to make a little hole. And then we will deal with that yarn over when we get to it on the wrong side. So I'm going to knit and pattern until we get to the next marker. Okay, we're coming up to it. So I am going to take that stitch marker off. I'm going to do a yarn over and then knit 2 together. And I'm just going to do that every time I get to one of my stitch markers. I'm going to do a yarn over and knit 2 together. We are getting up to our marker. So I'm going to knit this stitch. Then I'm going to do a yarn over and take my marker out. Then I'm going to knit 2 together. So I'm going to knit that purl stitch and the next knit stitch. Oops, let me try that again. Pull that through. Then I'm going to work in pattern until I get to my next marker. So purl, knit, purl, knit. Okay, same thing again. I'm going to knit to my marker, remove the marker, do my yarn over, do a knit 2 together, and that's it. That's the buttonhole stitch all the way down. It just makes a little hole in your button band, just like we did with the raglan increases, and it's just big enough for a little button to fit through. There's lots of different buttonhole methods, but I like this one. It's simple and easy, and it looks really nice. Here we are again at the next marker. And I'm just going to do it the same way. And it looks like I switched to holding the yarn in my right hand just so you can get an image of how that looks. So I'm going to do a yarn over and do a knit 2 together. Just like before, it just looks different depending on which hand you hold your yarn in. And when I first started, I would get really confused watching tutorials because I just didn't know enough and it looked so different.